Hello and welcome. My name's Dr. Elise Hunkin. I'm one of the lecturers here at RMIT in early childhood, and I'm going to talk you through this preparation video called What to Expect from Professional Experience. First of all, you can expect to have a really great time. Most students report that professional experience is the highlight of their program, and no matter what you experienced, whether it be great or a little bit mixed, one of the really essential components of this program is that you spend some time in industry and get a sense of how you can build that practical component of your skill set. But we understand that going into early childhood services, especially for the first time, can be really daunting. So you've actually got lots of support on hand to help you. First of all, before you start, it's really important that you must read and understand what we call the PX handbook. PX is a common shorthand that we use for professional experience. We sometimes also call it a WIL or a work integrated learning course. Everything that you need to know is in the PX handbook. If at any time there are any difficulties or any complications, or we need to help you or support you with something, we will always refer back to the PX handbook because that's also our rule of thumb. So make sure that you've read and understood it. And also, I would recommend that you make sure that your mentor has a copy. We do send all the documentation to the services, but in some early childhood services there will be multiple layers of management. And it can happen that information like the PX handbook will stay with management and not necessarily right down to the person who will be your day-to-day mentor. So before you start, make sure that your mentor has a copy of the handbook too. We also require that you complete a placement competency quiz. This is just on Canvas. You can attempt it as many times as you like, and it'll talk you through some of just the really key points around rules, responsibilities and duty of care. There will also be a briefing that's linked to each course that you take that you must attend or watch before you can go on professional placement. A few other things that are really important, first of all, are that you complete and you provide a working with children check. This is the law. This is not something that RMIT have done for fun, but it is something that we're responsible for with you. So before you can go into a service, you need to have a working with children check, which is a national check to do with your police record, your background and your history. You need to provide a copy of that to the RMIT office and also to the service that you're going to. You cannot be in an early childhood setting without a valid working with children check. Even if for some reason the service does not ask you for a copy and you manage to begin without one, any days of placement that you complete without a working with children check will not be counted by the university towards your degree. So this is a really key part of your responsibilities before you start. Likewise, before you can start placement, you need to complete what's called the acceptance form, and this is in your placement handbook. You'd need to go to the centre, have a visit, that's really important, get to know where you're going, take your acceptance form, and then actually tick off or pre-plan when you're going to attend and which age groups you're going to attend. There's a form in the PX handbook for you to do this, and you'll see that it needs to be signed by both you and your mentor before you commence. This is really important because what we want is for you to start placement with a sense of calm and a sense of being well prepared. And it shouldn't be for the service that they don't know when to expect you or what to expect from you. So your first visit, your pre-visit, and that process of talking through the acceptance form and your attendance schedule is really important about building that initial rapport. While you're on placement, the really important things for you to keep an eye on, apart from your general performance, is that you manage your attendance. Attendance is set by ASEQA, which is the national governing body for early childhood in Australia, and it is required that you are in attendance for 7 hours per day. This is required by ASEQA for you to attain your qualification. The university from time to time will be audited, and all the attendance records are checked to ensure that students are in fact completing 7 hours a day whilst on placement. This is really key because what it means is that a CQUA do not count 5 hours or 4 hours as being 1 day of attendance, only 7 hours minimum. So you cannot complete extra hours on a Thursday to make up for fewer hours on a Friday and vice versa. 7 hours must be recorded for 1 day to be completed. It's also really important that if you're unwell, which can happen whilst you're on placement, that you call the centre and let them know. The centre should not at any time be wondering where you are or what's going on. Whilst you're on placement, it's also your responsibility to manage your assessment, including things like consent forms, which you'll need to complete before you can start observing any children. It's really important to keep in mind that your mentor is not doing the course or the program. You are, obviously, so they don't know what it is that your lecturers have asked you to complete, and they may or may not be familiar even with some of the theories or the activities that you're involved in. So it is your responsibility to manage your assessment, and you cannot assume that your mentor in the setting knows exactly the ins and outs of what's required for you. Any questions about your assessment need to come to your RMIT tutors. You absolutely need to be involved. In my experience, I've had a fair bit now, early childhood teachers, mentors in general, they don't mind at all if you make mistakes or if what you do is not perfect, as long as they see that you're getting involved and giving it a go. You cannot develop your skill base if you're not actually practicing and trying different strategies for working and being with children. So make sure you get involved. In the same way, make sure you take advantage of your RMIT mentor tutor, who will visit or call or arrange an online meeting with you depending on which course it is that you're completing. And also remember that you must check emails and keep up to date with Canvas. When you're on placement, I know you can feel a little bit dislocated from the university sometimes because you're focusing your energies elsewhere, but it is really important that you keep up to date with any emails or Canvas activity because that's your primary link back to the university. And we're still here while you're on placement, ready to support you, but you must be keeping up to date with some of those avenues of communication. So, a few general notes on what's expected of you when you're on placement, and I won't read all of these to you, but some of the really important things here are around attitude and respect. You are a visitor in a centre, and you are a student. So anytime that a service agrees to take on a student or multiple students, they are offering you an experience, and it is a privilege. So you must be responsible, you must be respectful. Make sure in the PX handbook that you're aware of the rules about social media and student conduct, and make sure that you portray a good attitude. You need to show enthusiasm, you need to show initiative. So familiarise yourself with what some of those words mean if you need to. But my general message to you is that you need to come every day with a big smile on your face, ready to learn as much as you can. That's what the centres are expecting. That's why they've taken you. They're ready to teach you and they expect you to be ready to learn. Part of that is that you need to be responsive to feedback. If your mentor teacher tells you you must be on time, then you must be on time. Or if your mentor teacher recommends that you spend more time sitting with children, then you need to spend more time sitting with children. It sounds really straightforward, but you'll be surprised how often problems will arise because students are not responding to the mentor's feedback. It could be that you're not understanding the feedback, which is completely understandable, but then of course it would be your responsibility to make sure that you communicate that and you ask them, can you tell me what you mean? Can you give me some examples? Another really important thing is we would expect that you meet halfway, we would expect that you talk to your mentor very regularly about your progress, but you need to meet midway to get a midway update from your mentor. How are you going? Are you on track? What do they want you to work on? And this is because we don't want any surprises. We don't want you to get to the end of a 23 or a 14-day placement and find out that you have got some key areas that you need to work on and that your mentor has serious concerns. That's something that you should know throughout your placement. And because all people have different communication styles, ultimately it's your responsibility to manage your placement and manage that communication between you and your mentor and make sure that the lines of communication are open. Now, last but not least is a very important point here about minimizing other work commitments. We know that this is a difficult thing to do, and I don't recommend this lightly, but it is not realistic to expect that you can attend placement at the same time as maintaining any other work commitments that you have when you are not on placement. Placement is tiring because you're learning a lot, and the learning curve can be very steep. And so you'll really need to make sure that you're minimizing the other commitments that are on when you are attending placement. I can't emphasize this highly enough. I know that for some of you it might be a sacrifice, but remember it will be a temporary one. Now, if you need some help, there's lots of different places that you can get help from, including your other student colleagues in the course, including Canvas and the discussion board. But if in a more formal capacity you think you're having trouble, don't wait to get help. If you have a query or a question, or your mentor has a query or a question, here are the processes for general inquiries. And I won't read these to you because they're in your PX handbook, so you can look at this in your own time. But you'll notice you have a first, second, and third port of call, and they escalate each time. So if you can't get onto your mentor tutor, although do be patient because we continue teaching and researching while you're on placement, it can take a day or two for a mentor tutor to get back to you, and that's normal. There's lots of people that you can go to. Likewise, if you think that you have been involved in, or you have witnessed, or you think that there is a critical event happening, there's a process for those too, and that's a different process to a general inquiry. So please do familiarise yourselves with these processes. And like I said, don't discount the casual types of support that are available to you too, like meeting with your colleagues for a coffee to talk it through, coming to class to debrief, and so on. But most of all, make sure you enjoy placement. It can be difficult as adults to learn new things because we're often not used to being the novice in a situation and feeling like we haven't quite found our feet. So be gentle with yourself because you can expect that this will happen, and try and enjoy it. And I have a little quote here from Winnie the Pooh because he's very wise. He's a children's book character, and he says, "Don't rush. Take the time to think, 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 think." This day and age, we're not often encouraged to take time to think. But for you, it's going to be really important as you reflect and as you come to terms with the things that you're learning and you're seeing and you're doing on placement. So, all the best for a successful placement, and we wish you all the best.